Hello and welcome to the introductory jungle guide for Season 9. The fundamental changes to the jungle in Season 9 is that Riot took experience out of the jungle, making wolves, grump, and raptors weak camps, and the Scuttle crab on the other hand now provides a lot more golden experience. It is second only to the Krugs, but the fact that it does not fight back and also restores your health and mana makes it a highly contested objective. The first step towards playing the jungle is picking a jungler and learning how to play him. There are many junglers to choose from, and what I would recommend is that you pick a champion that you like. Or if you do not know where to begin in the jungle, simply pick Warwick and follow along. Now you will inevitably have questions about itemization and runes, so what I'm going to recommend is that you seek out the best players for your champion. So for example, if I want to learn how to build and itemize Xin Zhao, I'm going to go to op.gg and check out the leaderboards and look at champions. And looking through this list of Xin Zhao players, I want to find someone who played Xin Zhao recently, and I'm going to take a look at his build and itemization. Do not worry about why they use the runes that they do or why they build what they build, just know that these items and runes work, and that's all that you care about. So now you selected your jungler, you have an idea of what to build, and you're ready to go into game. The first thing you'll want to watch out for is that you might get invaded, and this will ruin your jungling experience. You have a couple of options to play around this. The first thing that you can do is ward the pixel brush in the bottom side river. In most cases, this will give you vision on the enemy team should they choose to invade. Now if you want to play even safer, you can use a trinket to ward the buff that you intend to start at and wait for it to spawn before you go in and start it. Now you might be paranoid about the enemy jungler coming for the buff that you're not starting at, and sometimes that is well warranted. If you want to play as safe as possible, take the Ghost Pora rune and plant it at the buff that you're not starting at while standing just outside the vision range of your first buff. This way you have vision on the area around both of your buffs when the game begins. Now the ideal solution and what you should ask your team for is to help you get vision on the pixel brush in both the top and bottom side river around the 1 minute and 20 second mark. Now in order to intelligently decide what jungle path you should use, there are a number of different factors to consider. The first category is when and how your jungler becomes powerful. The early game duelists are known for coming online at level 2, at which point they have high damage and strong ganking capabilities. Xin Zhao and Pantheon are examples of these kinds of champions. Next we have the fighter class of champions who become effective at levels 3 to 6. These are Juggernauts and Divers who are known for their moderate damage and average ganking capabilities. Examples of these kinds of champions are Warwick, Sylas, and Vi. Next we have the Assassins and Mages who become effective at levels 3 to 6 and get stronger as the game progresses. They have high damage and normal ganking capabilities. Examples of these champions are Kha'Zix, Evelynn, Talia, and Karthus. Next we have the Tank class of champions who become effective at level 3 to 6 onwards. They're known for having low damage, incredibly strong ganks, and becoming very tanky as the game progresses. Examples of these champions include Rammus, Amumu, and Sejuani. Lastly, we have the Late Game Duelists. These champions tend to be weak early on, scaling well with items, they have strong farming capabilities, and really poor ganks. Examples of these champions are Master Yi and Shyvana. The next factor that we need to consider is the jungle clear speed. The early game duelists, the level 3 to 6 Juggernauts, Divers, and Assassins all have normal clear speeds, and what that means for you is that they are not that great at clearing Krugs or the Dragon. The tank class of champions tend to have slow clear speeds, which means they're very slow at clearing the Krugs, and they should never try to solo the Dragon or the Baron. The late game duelists usually have excellent clear speeds, which means they excel at clearing the Krugs, soloing the Dragon, and some of them can even solo the Baron during the late game. The next factor that we must consider is the priority of the jungle camps. Due to the changes that Riot made in Season 9, experience has been taken out of the jungle and put into the Scuttle Crab, making it the highest priority camp on the map. The jungler who gets all the Scuttle Crabs will get further ahead, while the jungler that misses all of them will fall behind. Next we have the Krugs that provides the most amount of gold and experience amongst all of the jungle camps, though most champions will find it difficult to clear the Krugs. The red buff provides a true damage and a slow, which improves both your ganking and dueling capabilities. Next to this is the blue buff, which is valuable for the mana regen and cooldown reduction that it provides, followed by the raptors, the wolves, and the grump, all of which have similar value. The next factor is whether you are a multi-target jungler or a single-target jungler. A single-target jungler may find it hard to clear the raptors, while a multi-target jungler will find it hard to clear the grump. You might want to pick up a Tiamat or a Bomb Center respectively in order to make your life easier. Now let's dig into the jungle paths. If you are a level 2 Duelist jungler, there are 3 main jungle paths that you will want to start with. First, we have the level 2 Scuttle Crab Cheese. This is a very greedy path where you will start at your red buff, gank the nearby lane, then take the Scuttle Crab in the river, then pass through the mid lane, possibly ganking that lane as well, towards the opposite side river where you will take that Scuttle Crab as well and then gank the nearby lane. This path is strong on any level 2 Duelist champion against any level 3 to 6 champion. Next, we have the red buff to the opposite side Scuttle Crab. The advantage of this path is that you will be on the opposite side of the map when the enemy team expects you to be on the bottom side. This will make it easier to gank your opponents at a time when they do not anticipate your presence. It is also possible that there are no good opportunities for a gank despite the fact that you are a strong level 2 Duelist jungler. In these cases, you can simply start at the red buff, take the opposite side Scuttle Crab, and then take the entirety of your blue side jungle. Note that these 3 jungle paths apply to a Duelist jungler on the red team as well, though he must start at his top side red buff with a substantially weaker leash from his top lane if he gets a leash at all. The advantage for the red side jungler, however, is that he's working his way from the top side of the map towards the bottom side, whereas most junglers and most players expect the jungler to work his way from the bottom side of the map towards the top side. This improves the level 2 Duelist jungler's odds of success early on when he's on the red team. There are also some more aggressive jungle paths for level 2 Duelists that you'll want to know about. As the blue side jungler, if you suspect that the enemy jungler is likely to stay on the bottom side of his jungle clearing the gromp or wolves, you can go straight from your red buff into his bottom side jungle where you might be able to kill him at the wolves or gromp. Similarly, if you believe the enemy jungler is likely to make his way towards the top side of the map, you can go from your red buff to his red buff where you can either take the red buff or kill him as he attempts to take it. As the red side jungler, your best aggressive invade is to go from your red buff straight to the enemy blue buff, and you might want to place a trinket over the wall to get vision on the enemy jungler as you set up an ambush to kill him. Note that these aggressive jungle paths also work if you believe that you are stronger than the enemy jungler. If you are not an aggressive jungler and you want to take a more safe path to level 3, you have 2 ways to go about it. If you are a multi-target jungler who probably takes Hunter's Talisman, as the blue team's jungler you will start at your bottom side red buff, clear the raptors, then head up to the top side to take the blue buff, then come back and take the wolf camp. As the red team's jungler you will start at your bottom side blue buff, clear the wolf camp, then head up to take your top side red buff, and then clear the raptors. The reason that we take the raptors or wolves last in each of these paths is that a multi-target jungler will recover the most amount of health while doing these camps last. If you are a single target jungler and are not feeling very aggressive, the path that you should take is to start at your bottom side buff, then clear the wolves, the gromp, and the top side buff in the order shown depending on whether you are the red team or the blue team's jungler. While these paths are safe, it would be a shame to give up a free Scuttle Crab. There are 2 more safe jungle paths that you can use provided that the enemy jungler is not a level 2 Duelist who is hungry for Scuttle Crabs. As the blue side jungler, start at your bottom side red buff, then take the top side Scuttle Crab and do a reverse sweep of your entire jungle. Note that we're assuming that the enemy jungler starts at his bottom side blue buff, so we keep an eye on the top lane to make sure that the enemy top laner is not missing, as that would suggest that the enemy top laner is leashing for his jungler who's starting at his top side red buff. A jungler on the red team can also start at his bottom side blue buff, then take the top side Scuttle Crab and do a reverse sweep of his entire jungle. Take note that these paths are much more safer for the red team's jungler than they are for the blue team's jungler. The reason is that junglers prefer starting at the red buff or the blue buff, and as a jungler on the red team, it is very unlikely that you will run into the scenario where the blue team's jungler is starting at his top side blue buff, whereas if you're a jungler on the blue team, the enemy jungler is very likely to start at his top side red buff if he plans on playing aggressively. If you want to stay ahead in golden experience, the best jungle path in the game is to go from your red buff to the Krugs, then gank the nearby lane. Take note that this jungle path is incredibly strong on the junglers with fast clear speeds, but it's very hard for most of the junglers and it's really hard for tanks. The only junglers who should never ever use this path are the early game duelists who spike in power at level 2 and have strong ganking capabilities. If you're doing this path on jungles in Zhao, you are doing something wrong. There are 2 more paths for the fast clear junglers that work exceptionally well against junglers who do not have fast clears. If you are a fast clearing red side jungler facing a single target blue side jungler, you can safely assume that the enemy jungler will not be clearing his raptor camp. Taking advantage of this, you can go from your red buff, take the enemy Scuttle Crab in the bottom side river, then take the enemy raptors and the enemy Krugs, putting them massively behind. On the other hand, if the enemy jungler is a multi-target jungler with a normal clear speed, You can assume that it's not safe to leave your raptors up, so clear them before going to the bottom side Scuttle Crab, after which you can go into the enemy jungle and take the raptors if they are up, followed by the Krugs, which will definitely be available. Both of these paths are available for the blue side jungler, but it is more challenging because of the possibility that the red side jungler might start at his bottom side blue buff. Verify by checking the top lane to see that the enemy top laner is missing, which will allow you to verify that the enemy jungler is starting at his red buff, which is required for this path to work. An important note for the fast clearing junglers is that you have one ace up your sleeve that the other junglers cannot compete with, and that is to grab a skirmisher saber as soon as you can and to go clear the first dragon that spawns. This is incredibly strong when the dragon that's up is an infernal, mountain, or cloud dragon. If you expect that you might get invaded by the enemy jungler, here are a few jungle paths that you can use to not fall behind. You will need vision on the pixel brushes in order to make the most of these. As the blue team's jungler, keep an eye on the top side pixel brush as you start at your red buff. Start clearing the raptor camp, and if you see the enemy jungler going for the Scuttle Crab or crossing over to your side of the jungle, take the bottom side Scuttle Crab and head into the bottom side enemy jungle. This path works well if the enemy jungler knows that he can invade you and there is nothing you can do about it. An alternate version of the same path is to clear the Krugs instead of the raptors. This is a lot harder, but you will get a lot more golden experience. These two paths are also available for the red side jungler, but you must start at your top side red buff and you must keep an eye on the bottom side pixel brush. Once you confirm that you are getting invaded, head into the enemy jungle for your counter invade. The blue side jungler also has one additional counter invading jungle path, and that is to start at the top side blue buff, then head towards your bottom side red buff as the enemy red side jungler comes into your top side jungle for an invade. The reason this works is that no one expects you to start at your top side blue buff as the blue team's jungler. Lastly, there are two sets of jungle paths worth mentioning. The red team's jungler has access to the delayed bottom side Scuttle Crab, and what this means is that the red side jungler can take his sweet time clearing any 3 camps before heading to the bottom side river, and if the Scuttle Crab is up, it is free. And the reason that it's free is that the enemy jungler is likely to have started at the bottom side of the jungle and worked his way over to the top side, which means he's not in the area. Similarly, the blue side jungler has access to the bot lane brush anti-cheese. Since there is a higher probability that the red team's jungler will start at his top side red buff, this frees up the red team's bottom lane to attempt to cheese your bottom lane in the bottom side Tribrush. So if you're facing an aggressive support on the enemy team that has Ignite, and you notice that the enemy top laner is missing as you're starting at your bottom side red buff, anticipate your bottom lane getting cheesed at the bottom side Tribrush and prepare to head over there immediately. Ganking is an essential part of jungling, and what it means is ambushing and killing enemy laners. Let's look at the factors that make a gank work. First, we need to consider how mobile a champion is. Soraka is an example of an immobile champion, and what this means is that she is much easier to gank and kill than say a champion like Renekton who can dash away multiple times through minions. And a champion like Rammus has the mobility needed to get in position and pull off ganks. So as an example, if I am playing jungle Rammus, it is much easier for me to gank and kill a Soraka than it is to gank and kill a Renekton. So on any jungler given the choice between ganking Renekton and ganking Soraka, I would choose Soraka. Next, we need to consider crowd control. Top lane Pantheon is an example of a champion with strong crowd control, which makes it easy to gank his lane. Teemo is an example of a champion that does not have any crowd control that can help with ganks. As a jungler, Xin Zhao has a lot of crowd control, which makes it very easy for him to gank a lane, whereas Shyvana has absolutely no crowd control, which is why her ganks are terrible. What this means is that Xin Zhao can make strong ganks for both Pantheon and Teemo, while Shyvana can only gank for Pantheon and relies on Pantheon's stun to get the kill. As a jungle Shyvana, this also means that you should never waste time ganking for a Teemo. Next, we need to consider damage. Between yourself and the ally that you're ganking for, you must be able to outdamage your opponent and take them down. Any fighter, mage, assassin, or marksman will have plenty of damage to make a gank work. Tanks deal low damage, so they will rely on their allies to deal most of the damage during a gank. It's also very important that the champion that you're trying to kill does not outdamage both you and your ally combined. While most combinations of junglers and laners can outdamage opponents, you should avoid the combination of a tank ganking for a tank or a support, as the damage is simply too low. You'll also want to avoid ganking high damage opponents who are ahead for allies who are behind until you are strong enough to kill the fed enemy laner on your own. The last and most important factor that we need to consider is positioning. Opponents are generally very easy to kill when they are far overextended in lane away from the safety of their turret. With the exception of a handful of incredibly mobile champions, it's very easy to gank and kill an overextended champion with the help of your ally. So back to our earlier example, if I am a jungle Rammus, I would favor ganking the enemy Renekton who is at our top lane turret over the enemy Soraka who is hugging her bottom side turret. And this is because Renekton's overly aggressive positioning negates its mobility advantage, making it much easier to gank him. Now that we know what lanes to gank and what lanes not to gank, let's talk about how to gank effectively. As a jungler, try to pick up a sweeper and a control ward on your first back. This will prove handy when it comes to ganking. As you go in to gank a lane, activate your sweeper and you will see if there are any wards along your path, giving the enemy team vision of you as you get into position. It's important that you know that you are not seen. Once you are in position, wait for the target to use up any mobility abilities that they have, as this will make your job easier. And when the target's abilities are on cooldown, that's when you move in to gank them by running to intercept the path along which they would run back towards their turret. This is very important. Do not run straight at your opponent. Try to get in position to cut off their escape route. And you can actually make it easier to intercept opponents by wrapping around the walls on their side of the map, coming at the target from behind. Once you are in position, start attacking them, but save any mobility abilities that you might have for their flash. And this approach will maximize your odds of getting a kill on the gank. So as an example, if I am a Xin Zhao trying to gank a Renekton in the top lane, I will activate my sweeper as I get into position to make sure that I'm not seen while I arrive in the river. Once I am in position, I will wait for the enemy Renekton to do what all Renektons do, and that is to dash in to attack and stun my ally, then dash back out. With Renekton's dashes on cooldown, he's a much easier target to gank, so I make my move. Instead of walking towards where Renekton is, we head to intercept him along his retreat to the turret, and we activate 3 Talon Strike, and we save our dash for his flash so that when he does try to flash away, we follow him with an audacious charge and knock him up into the air. Lastly, we have tower dives on low health targets under their turret. All I'm going to say is that this is incredibly risky and should be avoided at all costs against champions that either have damage mitigation or crowd control. So as an example, a low health Soraka is very easy to gank under turret and kill. However, a low health Renekton is a much more dangerous target to dive under turret, as he has mobility, stuns, healing, and he gains a lot of health with his ultimate, which makes it much harder to burst him down. The next aspect of jungling that falls outside of jungle paths and ganking is to pay attention to what's going on around you. A lot of junglers have a tendency to look at the camps that are right in front of them instead of paying attention to what's going on nearby. Always keep an eye on the river and what's happening in your lanes as you're farming your jungle camps. If you see an opportunity, leave your camps and immediately go help your team. Next, we need to talk about smiting. Yes, you should smite monsters when they get low on health in order to last hit them and secure the monster. This is important when dealing with opponent junglers that might try to take objectives like Dragon and Baron from you, or even allies like Darius and Teemo who might accidentally steal your first buff. When it comes to securing objectives like Dragon and Baron and the Rift Herald, all I'm going to say is leave nothing to chance. If at all possible, wipe out members of the enemy team who might be able to steal Dragon or Baron from you. And I don't mean just the enemy jungler, but any champion that can burst down the target that you're trying to smite. Now there are times where you will miss smite despite your best efforts and the enemy team might get Baron or Dragon. Do not bother beating yourself up mentally over missing smite. Your teammates will be there to do that for you. If you're like me and you know that you suck at smiting, only take objectives like Rift Herald, Dragon, and Baron when you know that no one is around to contest them. Using all of the information that we have gone over so far in this video, we have to come up with a game plan for our jungler that is unique to the matchup that we're in. So when playing a level 2 duelist jungler like Xin Zhao, I will start up my red buff. I can't clear the raptor, so I'm going to head over to the topside river and take the Scuttle crab that spawns there. After that, I will look for a ganking opportunity in the top lane or mid lane. Since I am Xin Zhao, I can make these ganks happen irrespective of the lane matchup. If the enemy laners are hugging their turrets during this time, as they should, I will simply wrap around through my blue side jungle and continue clearing as normal. Regardless of how the game starts out, every time I head back to base, I'm going to buy a control ward, clear Krugs, Scuttle crab, both of my buffs, and continue looking for opportunities to gank. I might leave my wolves, the grump, and the raptors up for a very long period of time, and that is okay. As a strong ganking jungler, I should not spend too much time farming my jungle. If I am playing Warwick jungle against a strong level 2 duelist jungler, I would prioritize reaching level 3 safely. I started the red buff, then clear the entirety of my blue side jungle, avoiding raptors and Krugs. If I am not facing a strong level 2 duelist jungler, I will opt for a jungle path that takes the Scuttle crab. I will try to pick up a Bami, Cinder, or Tiamat to help clear the raptors and Krugs, and continue jungling as normal while keeping an eye on my lanes. In both cases, I will look for targets to get low on health as my Blood Scent will kick in, giving me a massive move speed towards the enemy. At which point the ganks become easier and I can even tower dive a low health target. As a tank jungler, I will avoid encounters with most of the enemy junglers. I will start on my red buff, then proceed to clear the raptors or the krugs while keeping an eye on the bottom side river. If my blue side jungle gets invaded, I will counter invade to stay even. I will focus my ganks on lanes where I have allies who deal a ton of damage. I will CC the enemy while my ally kills them. I will build tanky itemization as the game progresses, allowing me to tower dive opponents under tower, tanking tower shots as my allies take them down. If I'm playing a late game duelist jungler like Master Yi who has poor ganks, I will prioritize farming the jungle. And if the enemy jungler is a much better ganker than I am, I will try to farm the enemy jungle as well. I will avoid ganking lanes that have no crowd control and will focus on ganking lanes where opponents are overextended. I will also prioritize picking up every single dragon as soon as it spawns. Given that I cannot gank as strongly as other junglers, I will prioritize gold, experience, and dragons for my team. Note that I'm not claiming that these are the best jungle paths for these champions and best way to play them, but these are simply some ideas to get you started. Now you might have noticed this was a lot of information to digest in one sitting, so I recommend going back over parts of the video again and taking notes. Jungling requires a lot of concentration and focusing on what's happening on the map. You will make a lot of mistakes when you first start jungling, but that's okay. The point is to learn and get better. Hopefully this video gives you an idea of how to start jungling. If you love these videos and want to see more, do hit the subscribe button and use the bell icon to be notified on when the next video comes out. If you want to improve your in-game decision making, take a look through the playlist on the left, and if you want to learn some league strategies, take a look through the playlist on the right. You can also follow on Twitter, and if you want to support this channel directly, do click on the Patreon link to support this channel.